Hello, everyone. I'm still in London, and we are going to continue exploring galleries in this video. This is part 2 of my last London video, so if you haven't seen that one, I will leave it linked above and below so you can check it out. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It will let you know every time I post a new video. We're going to start the day at Thaddaeus Ropac, and spoiler, this is one of my favorite exhibits of the day, and this also happens to be one of my favorite galleries in London, and you will see why. This space is just gorgeous. This is an exhibit of works by Adrian Ghenie titled The Fear of Now, and the show is all about the impact of the digital age on the human condition. So these works explore a few different ways that the digital age has impacted us. So it's everything from our body language to how we communicate with one another to how we're perceived within society today. Ghenie is inspired by the works of Otto Dix, Philip Guston, Picasso, and Francis Bacon. And you can really see this in his color palettes. You can see these really rich colors, as well as his figures. So for his figures, he states, quote, "I have this need to deconstruct, to destroy the body, and to put it back in a new silhouette, which I call the impossible body." The result, or the impossible body, is this bulbous, biomorphic form that has just enough elements from reality, like a flip-flop or a Nike tennis shoe, that you can recognize it as a human form. And while most of the paintings explore how digital devices have impacted our physical and emotional form, he also explores how they've influenced an artist's studio space. So he says that, quote, "The studio practiced has changed fundamentally. Before, the studio used to be a temple of solitude. Now, with these laptops and phones, there's this kind of collectivity present, and you can't get rid of it, even if you turn them off." However, it's not all bad. The digital world can sometimes provide a source of infinite inspiration. Ghenie states that, quote, "That's what is new in the world. You've got access to infinite databases of images and data. I scan my options and take whatever seems expressive enough or paintable. You cannot do a figurative painting if you think simply in terms of reproduction or naturalist narrative. You have to see the reality, process it, and come up with a set of symbols which will evoke that reality for you." A theme that Ghenie dives deeper into is this concept of identity and how identity is shaped in a digitally saturated world. So Ghenie has felt that he personally has 3 personas. He has the real artist, the artist working in the studio, and then he has the myth of the artist as received by the, quote, public and disseminated in popular media. So he's used Marilyn Monroe as a symbol to represent this because she's one of the most iconic Hollywood stars whose identity has been shaped by society through her images. I don't know about you all, but I'm actually really impressed by the amount of works that Ghenie has created for this show. They're all incredible, and there are just so many of them. Also, here's a little shout out to Otto Dix on this book here. This is one of my favorite works in the exhibit, and this is a work called The App. And it's the only work in the exhibit that features two figures. And this is meant to represent the evolution of communication thanks to our digital devices. Now, Ghenie doesn't say if that evolution is positive or negative. I think we can just take away whatever we'd like from it. I personally think it looks like the soul is getting sucked out of the person by the device, but take it as you will. We're now heading over to another favorite London gallery of mine. This is Pilar Corrias Gallery, and they have an exhibit by Tschabalala self. And this exhibit is at this space, which they just opened a few years ago, and at their original space, which is over in Fitzrovia. However, I wasn't able to make it over to the second part of this exhibit, but apparently it kind of resembles more of her signature style, which is that of assemblage, where she mixes fabric and paint. And I was really surprised by this exhibit. Her style, I felt like, has really shifted in these works. She's just using paint, and then she has these sculptures. And the exhibit is titled Homebody, and the works are symbolic of a few different themes. So, as the title of the exhibit suggests, self looks at the idea of domesticity, being inspired by, of course, the past few years where we were confined to our homes. Tschabalala self states, quote, "When we think of the home, we think of interiority and privacy, and those imply a sense of freedom. We imagine we're free to behave as we wish, but there are still expectations and limitations that mirror, if not magnify, those that exist in public." You can see that she's included both women and men in her works, and I think she's doing this to highlight the different role that domesticity can play in one's life based on your gender. And another theme she's explored through these works is race. So for the first time, she's included objects for her figures to interact with, such as chairs. So all of the figures, whether they're in the paintings or the sculptures, they're sitting. They're confidently facing the viewer. And this is meant to be a powerful symbol of the basic human rights that Black individuals have been deprived of for so long. So just even the concept of sitting and leisurely having a portrait done, this was something that was only experienced by the wealthy white population. We're now going to head over to Pace Gallery to see an exhibit of works by Sam Gilliam. And I actually haven't been to Pace's new location since they moved last fall. They used to be right next to the Royal Academy. They didn't move that far. They're still in Mayfair, but I'm excited to see the new space. This is a really remarkable and powerful exhibit because it consists of works that Gilliam created during the last 2 years of his life. Gilliam passed away in June of this year, and this was his first solo exhibit in the UK. The works you see here are one of his signatures. So this is a beveled edge canvas, which was a technique that he started in the late 1960s. So each side of the canvas slopes downwards, giving the canvas more depth, as well as helping it sort of almost blend into the wall. Another technique that he's famous for that he created around the same time were his draped sculptures, and I recently saw one of his at the Crystal Bridges Museum of Art. I will leave that video linked above and below. And Gilliam has not only experimented with the form of the canvases, he's also experimented with the paint. So the way that he gets this hyper-textured effect is he mixes it with everything from sawdust to powdered metals in with this acrylic paint. And he then, quote, manipulates the wet surfaces using a range of everyday tools and innovative techniques. There's so much physical exertion being put into the creation of these works. You can really just feel the energy that he's transferred when creating them. And although the works are abstract, each is inspired by the, quote, radical upheavals in American society and politics, in particular the seminal events of the civil rights movement. The final exhibit that we're going to see today is at Hauser and Wirth Gallery, and this is a really exciting exhibit of works by Amy Sherald. This is her first European solo show, which is kind of crazy since she's one of the most well-known contemporary portrait artists. Her career really exploded when she was chosen back in 2016 by First Lady Michelle Obama to paint her portrait. And portraits are her signature. She creates these intimate portraits of contemporary African American experiences in the United States. And creating portraits is particularly important to Sherald because it's, quote, a tradition that for too long excluded the Black women, men, families, and artists whose lives have been inextricable from public and politicized narratives. This exhibit is titled The World We Make, and in these works, Sherald speaks to many different themes within American life, such as queer rights, masculinity, and freedom. And she's done so by repositioning historic works or images in American history through a new lens. So, for example, this work, titled For Love and for Country, is based off of the VJ Day in Times Square photograph, where a sailor is kissing a woman after Japan has surrendered in World War II. But instead, she's replaced the heterosexual couple with two males wearing sailor-esque clothing. And this is meant to call out, quote, discrimination against non-heterosexual people within the U.S. military in recent history. This is meant to not only make a statement about America's past, and in turn, the iconic images that have shaped our society, but it lets those viewing the exhibit potentially reimagine the world in a way that is more relatable and freeing to them. And I feel like there's an undertone of hope throughout this whole exhibit. That although looking at history can sometimes reveal these painful truths, it's important to understand it, to learn from it, and to change it for the future. In fact, Sherald states, quote, the works reflect a desire to record life as I see it and as I feel it. My eyes search for people who are and who have the kind of light that provide the present and the future with hope. This is one of my personal favorite works in the exhibit called Deliverance, and it was inspired by the bike culture in Baltimore and the sense of freedom that comes from riding, but it's just meant to represent freedom just in general. And I'm not sure if she did this on purpose, but I do love the dueling, sort of Nike shoes on one side and Adidas shoes on the other. And that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed coming to London with me. There's so many amazing galleries here, so I'm glad I got to share a few of my favorites with you all. And I will see you all in my next video.